CTV News with Matt Grillo.
Good evening and welcome to this half-hour newscast on CJAD 800 and CTV News Montreal.ca. A Quebec coroner has released a list of recommendations to better protect pedestrians. The report looked into the death of a 7-year-old girl, a Ukrainian refugee. She was killed in Montreal while walking to school 3 years ago. The coroner says it appears the sun and construction were both factors in her death. Angela McKenzie reports.
It's here at the corner of Parthenay and de Rouen that 7-year-old Maria Lehenkovska was struck and killed nearly 3 years ago while walking to school with her siblings.
It's not always about speed.
Sylvain Martel with the Quebec Parents Committee RCPAQ is glad the coroner's recommendations aren't focused on adding speed bumps and lowering speed limits.
For once, somebody says it's about car density. The number of cars that travels on small streets.
The coroner found the driver who struck Maria was partially blinded by sunlight and didn't see her. He was also rerouted through the residential neighborhood by his GPS due to construction on the La Fontaine tunnel. The coroner recommends Transport Quebec communicate with companies that run GPS navigation apps to find better ways to mitigate traffic around major construction projects.
The evidence shows that speed is always a factor.
Kevin Mino is a professor at McGill who studies pedestrian safety in urban areas. He says the recommendations are an important first step, but would like to see the speed limit in school zones lowered from 30 kilometers per hour to 20.
It doesn't mean that the driver was necessarily speeding, but they were going at a speed that led to someone dying or being seriously injured. And so there's rarely a case where I think, from a scientific standpoint, that you can't say that speed was an issue.
Following Maria's death, parents called for improved safety near schools. But both Martel and Mino believe parents are partially to blame for traffic in school zones.
They are part of the problem by dropping their kids close to school in cars.
Mino adds that's not a safer solution.
This leads to this almost kind of vicious cycle almost like this arms race kind of idea that everyone thinks it's safer to drive their kids to school, which just causes more danger.
The coroner also recommends changes to the way police evaluate school intersections to take things like sunlight conditions into account. Angela McKenzie, CTV News.
A fire at an auto recycling center in Laval continues to burn more than 18 hours after it started. It began just before midnight last night at Pièce d'Auto Mondiale on Monté-Masson in the Saint-François district. Firefighters from neighboring municipalities were called in to assist. Although authorities said today the fire was under control, crews remained on scene battling hot spots. The building is a total loss. No injuries were reported. An investigation will begin once the fire is completely out. Bill 89, legislation that unions say infringes on workers' right to strike, is now law. It's known as Law 14. The bill was introduced by Labour Minister Jean Boulet in the spring. It gives the government broad powers to end strikes. It also ensures mandatory minimum service in the event of a strike or lockout. If you're planning to get some holiday shopping done at Carrefour Laval, you have a little more time. The mall is extending its hours. Sweeta Rassi explains.
At CF Carrefour Laval, the Christmas tree is glowing, and with the holiday season in full swing, the mall is now keeping its doors open longer than usual.
I think it's great. I think it's good for commerce. I think it's good for the economy, and I think it's important that we spread some holiday cheer.
The mall would typically close at 5 in the evening on weekends, but Carrefour Laval is now extending its holiday hours until the 1st of January. Then after that, a new permanent schedule will kick in. On Saturdays, the mall will be open until 7, on Sunday until 6.
I finish work around 6 p.m. And I don't live in Laval, so coming from further away, it's always easier if it's if it closed later.
It's all part of a one-year pilot project launched by the Quebec government to help businesses compete with online shopping retailers.
To have just 10% on the price participate in the project pilot, for me, is good.
Since October, stores in Laval, Gatineau, and Saint-Georges have been allowed to stay open longer. The 3 cities were chosen to test the pilot project. Only non-food businesses, such as larger chains and small boutiques, can participate. Shoppers say the initiative is welcomed.
So I think for lifestyle balance, it's much better for shoppers.
However, one shopper is worried longer hours could come at a cost for employees.
Mais j'imagine que ça va être bien pour d'autres, mais ça va pas être bien pour les employés qui travaillent aussi.
Quebec says it hopes to expand the project to other parts of the province.
Example in Sherbrooke, or Quebec City, or Longueuil.
Even as the popularity of online shopping grows, some people still prefer the old-fashioned experience.
I'd rather come to a mall. It gets me out of the house, chill, meditate.
For now, shoppers here are making the most of the extra time to check off their holiday list. Sweeta Rassi, CTV News, Laval.
4 Montreal suburbs are urging its residents to change their passwords on its emergency notification service. Kirkland, Côte-Saint-Luc, Hampstead and the town of Mount Royal say the company responsible for the Code Red alert system was the victim of a cyber attack. The service, operated by Crisis 24, a division of Garda World, says an investigation is ongoing. It has since decommissioned the platform. The municipalities say usernames and passwords were stolen. Technology analyst Carmi Levy says there are 3 simple things to follow when changing a password.
First thing is you want to use a hard to guess password. So not the name of your pet, not the name of your significant other or the street where you grew up on. It should be a complex word, upper and lower case text, throw in some numbers, maybe punctuation marks as well, or even better, use a passphrase instead of a password. Make sure that you're not using the same password across multiple accounts. That ensures that, for example, once breached information like we're seeing here gets into the hands of criminals, they can't just use it to start knocking on the door of all of your other accounts till eventually they get in. So yeah, it's a little less convenient, but if you use unique passwords for everything that you sign in for, every app, every account, every website, that goes a long way toward ensuring that you're more secure. And finally, make sure that you're changing your passwords regularly.
He says even though financial data was not stolen, every breach of data is serious. Cold and flu season has arrived in Canada and is now quickly spreading across many parts of the country. Paul Hollingsworth has more on the different strains affecting Canadians.
It's cold and flu season, which is why Chris Butler recently decided to be proactive and get her shots before the winter weather sets in.
I am safe, but I am still doing the wash my hands and that kind of thing. And I don't like to go to any event if it's really crowded.
New data from Health Canada shows flu cases jumped to more than 2,100 last week, up from close to 1,400 the previous week. The population most affected by the flu are people 65 and older. That's why Bill Van Gorder is urging his fellow seniors to wear a mask and be up to date with vaccinations.
Your flu shot, your COVID shot, your RSV shot. Remember, if you get one of those other respiratory diseases, the chances of you also picking up the flu are very strong.
Some children's hospitals across the country have implemented mask mandates and have added extra healthcare staff, expecting an influx of flu patients this season. Infectious disease specialist Dr. Lisa Barrett says there are concerns this year's flu vaccine is not a perfect match for the strains spreading in Canada.
It still does prevent hospitalizations and ICU admissions in many people. And also, there are other strains that are well matched still, that might not be as common, but are still floating around. And this vaccine will still protect you against those.
According to Dr. Barrett, there are also fears this version of the flu virus could bring a lot of sickness.
We do know from the rest of the world that we're starting to see influenza go up, and it's been a crappy influenza season in other parts of the world, so likely it's going to be a tough one here too.
Dr. Lisa Barrett says sometimes people think they have a cold when actually it's the flu, which can lead to severe symptoms and sometimes other complications. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
BC Premier David Eby, who has strongly opposed Alberta's pursuit of a new pipeline, says he's open to the project if the tanker ban remains in place. John Venevalley-Rao reports.
Just days ago, BC's premier stepped up to a microphone and suggested the pipeline agreement he was left out of was never going to amount to anything.
No proponent, no route, no money, no First Nation support.
But on CTV's question period, David Eby now says he is open to discussing a pipeline project running through his province if there are no changes to the federal tanker ban.
If we can agree that the oil tanker ban is going to stay in place, then let's have those conversations. I think that would make life a lot better and easier in British Columbia in terms of our relationship with coastal First Nations, and would definitely take down the temperature.
Put in place 6 years ago, the ban prohibits larger tankers from docking at ports along BC's north coast if they're carrying lots of crude or certain types of oil. It's in place to protect some delicate ecosystems. Eby says an exemption would anger First Nations groups and put existing energy projects in jeopardy, and suggested another option, increasing capacity of the existing Trans Mountain pipeline.
Trying to find a path forward, trying to de-escalate tensions with our neighbors, trying to understand their concerns, what they would like to do, and I really hope they do the same for us.
The Memorandum of Understanding, signed this week with Alberta, has already cost the Prime Minister a cabinet minister and longtime environmentalist. And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was booed by grassroots members when she said this at her party's annual general meeting.
I hope people today feel a lot more confident that Canada works than they did a couple of days ago.
As for BC's premier, he had vehemently opposed a new bitumen pipeline, and some noting a change in tone.
Eby is not slamming the door. He's not having a fit. He wants some of the projects of his own that involve fossil fuels, especially liquefied natural gas, to go through. And he mentions tens of billions of dollars of current projects and tens of billions more.
Meanwhile, Eby has also said he'd like to explore things like boosting the country's capacity to refine petroleum as opposed to buying gas from the U.S. John Penavalley-Rouse, CTV News, Toronto.
The head of the UN's HIV and AIDS program is pushing for Canada to reverse its planned cuts to foreign aid. Canada's former Foreign Affairs Minister Lloyd Axworthy says the cuts mark a fundamental change in Liberal policy.
Canadians now have to understand that this is quite a substantial moving away from the kind of liberal internationalism that wasn't just for reasons of altruism. It was because we thought the best way of providing security for Canada is to make sure that the rest of the world has more stability, more equality, ability to fight climate, to support health. These are all issues that I think we're now basically abandoning.
Officials say with rising inequality making it difficult for people to obtain the help they need, countries like Canada need to continue to support global health programs. Police in California are investigating after 4 people were killed and 11 injured in a shooting at a birthday party in Stockton, California. Officials say the shooting occurred inside a banquet hall around 6 p.m. yesterday and that the suspect fled the scene and remains at large. The victims who died ranged in age from 8 to 21. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Florida today meeting with the Ukrainian delegation, discussing steps towards ending the war.
So this is not just about ending a war. This is about ending a war in a way that creates a mechanism and a way forward that will allow them to be independent and sovereign, never have another war again, and create tremendous prosperity for its people. Not just rebuild the country, but to enter an era of extraordinary economic progress. It's a country with Ukraine has tremendous economic potential. Ukraine has tremendous opportunity for true prosperity.
The head of the Ukrainian delegation emphasized that today's meeting is to address security, prosperity, and how to rebuild Ukraine while preventing Russian aggression. Rubio met with Ukrainian negotiators last week in Geneva to revise an initial blueprint towards ending the war. And let's take a look at the forecast now. An important note, tomorrow is the winter tire deadline in Quebec. It is currently 1 degree in Montreal, it's -1 in Sherbrooke, -2 in Quebec City. Plenty of sun tomorrow, but it's going to be cold, -6 in the morning, and it's not going to warm up much. It will be -8 by evening. We are expecting snowfall on Tuesday with a high of -4. It is going to get very cold later in the week. A low of -17 on Thursday, and Friday will have a high of -7. The office Christmas party season is upon us. It's a time to enjoy some relaxed moments with your colleagues. Even though you might be away from the office, are you still considered to be at work? Joining us now to talk more about this is Brittany Carson. She's a lawyer at Laval Law Firm. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Nice to be here.
So, the office Christmas party, is it an extension of the workplace?
So in a lot of cases, it will be, right? When you're at your office Christmas party, you're often there at the request of your employer because you've been invited there in an event that's been planned and often paid for by your employer. Sometimes it's even seen as sort of a team building activity. And because of that, there is this connection with the workplace, and it's viewed often as something that will be in the course of your employment. And so, you know, the operative word being in an office Christmas party being office.
Some people would argue, though, that they're not actually at the office, not physically present at their building. So they feel as though maybe there shouldn't be consequences affecting their employment. Why would that not hold true, though?
So a couple of things. I mean, obviously in the era of remote work, I think we've seen that even when we're not physically present in the four walls of our office, it doesn't mean we're necessarily not engaging in some type of work. But also, you know, again, we're in a sphere where you're there often because the employer has invited you, has sponsored and paid for and endorsed an activity. And so because of that, what the case law has recognized, what legislation has recognized is that there's still this connection to your employment. And so unfortunately, for some, that means that it's not going to be sort of in this space that is immune from connection to your employment. And so you need to keep that in mind when you're at an office Christmas party.
Do employers also hold some responsibility at the office Christmas party?
Absolutely. So if, you know, as I said, this is a sphere that is often seen as being connected to the workplace, that means that employers will have a responsibility in most of these cases to make sure that what's happening at the Christmas party is not in violation of their policies. And I would say that from experience, when we're talking about what happens in at an office Christmas party and when that becomes problematic, often this will fall into three buckets. So sometimes we see things related to injuries, people getting hurt at the office Christmas party. We do see a lot of issues related to psychological and sexual harassment happening at the Christmas party. And then misconduct, right? Policy breaches, even violence. Some of this can really be connected, as you'd imagine, to people being overserved or having too much alcohol at the office Christmas party. So important for the employer to recognize it has obligations. It's important for it to be in prevention, to make sure its harassment policy is up to date, that it tells its employees what it expects at the office Christmas party, the type of behavior they have to engage in, and that, you know, they're putting rules in place when it comes to alcohol, making sure people are not being overserved. And often that open bar is something you want to avoid as an employer.
And just to finish up here, we got about 30 seconds left. So to avoid legal troubles or employment issues, what are your suggestions for people as they attend their office parties this year?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say it comes down to professional judgment, right? It doesn't mean you can't have fun at a Christmas party, but it does mean that you have to remember that what you do there can have repercussions on Monday morning when the Christmas party is over. So behave in a way that is consistent with your professional obligations. Make sure, obviously, you're not engaging in some sort of behavior that's going to get you in trouble, and just act with some judgment when you're at that Christmas party at the evening before you go back to work.
Brittany Carson, thank you so much for doing this today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Chez Doris held its 10th annual holiday fair today. From mittens and jewelry to candles and soap, the items are crafted by women who are supported by the shelter. This year, women in the Chez Doris culinary program served soup to the guests. It's a chance for the shelter to celebrate artistic talent and give back to the community.
Not only does it break isolation, but it develops a sense of pride and dignity in a woman to be able to create, and not just create, but then to sell the products that they make. It's really important, and you will see among the women here that are our participants in our programs and services, the pride that they have in being able to produce something and sell it.
The proceeds from the sales go towards supporting Chez Doris. An ER nurse from the Laurentians made ultramarathon history this month. Sandra Lafontaine is the first Canadian woman to complete the Grand Slam of ultramarathons. Christine Long has her story.
4 huge ultramarathon events, hundreds of miles, all completed within 8 months. Sandra Lafontaine is the first Canadian and the first woman to complete what's known as the Grand Slam of ultramarathons. She says it was extraordinary.
C'était extraordinaire.
She's run 40 ultramarathons in the last 11 years, each one ranging from 57 to 500 kilometers. Lafontaine says it's more about endurance than speed.
D'adrénaline, d'énergie.
She says the runs prepare her for her 16-hour nursing shifts in the Sainte-Agathe-des-Monts Hospital's emergency department.
Ça aide pour les endorphines, ça calme le système.
Lafontaine says the endorphins she gets from the 20 hours of training a week in the Laurentians help her focus and concentrate on the job.
My colleagues are very impressed by myself, and they think I'm very crazy to do these big races. Yeah.
49 years old and injury-free, Lafontaine is already filling her 2026 calendar with more challenges.
In the dark, yeah.
In the mountains.
In the mountains, yeah. In the trail.
She says running ultramarathons is not a hobby, it's her way of life. Christine Long, CTV News, Sainte-Agathe-des-Monts.
Time now for In Case You Missed It. There are more reports of animal cruelty and abuse. The SPCA has a bureau of investigators who follow up on tips which can lead to criminal charges. Now it's expanding its services with a 24-hour hotline. And a warning, there are some disturbing images in this report. Denise Roberts has more.
Like any dog, Linus loves to run. But in March, he could not even stand. He was found by SPCA investigators who followed a tip that saved his life. Investigator Deborah Dunlop says the SPCA is now handling more calls about animal cruelty than ever before.
There's many animals out there that need care and follow-up, and we're the investigation office that does that here.
And now the SPCA is expanding their service with a 24-hour hotline, encouraging people to call 1-855-711-7575 if they see an animal being abused, abandoned, starved, living in an unsafe or unsanitary environment, or injured.
We take care of a large region around Montreal and in Quebec, so they send us complaints and we take care of those.
Those inspections can come with a bite. The Bureau works in conjunction with the police, the province, and the Crown Prosecutor's Office to enforce Quebec's animal welfare laws. In Linus's case, investigators were able to compile a case against his owners, who now face 2 charges and up to 5 years in prison.
We'll work together. If they want us to support them, we'll support them. If they want us to take the investigation criminally, we will take it.
Last year, the Bureau handled more than 9,000 inquiries, which led to 179 animals being removed from their environment. It's not an easy job, but Dunlop, who is a retired police investigator, says it's an important one.
We have to do it, whether we want to or, whether you feel up to it or not. Somebody's got to take care of an animal that's suffering.
And though hard, there are happy endings. In Linus's case, he found a loving home and his stride. Denise Roberts, CTV News.
The Ilotort Bridge has reopened ahead of time after work scheduled this weekend was completed earlier. The bridge was closed in both directions Friday night and was scheduled to reopen only on Monday at 5 a.m., but the work went quicker than expected. There are more details on our website, ctvnewsmontreal.ca, and traffic reports every 15 minutes on CJ 8800 radio. That's it for us. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.